It's 1:30. I'd like to call the January 25th, 2013 meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Commission to order. Roll call, Commissioner Witcher.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Littlefield.
Present.
Commissioner Newton.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Hale.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Schuline. Here. Commissioner Jenkins.
Here.
Commissioner George.
Here.
Commissioner Yonkel.
Here.
Thank you. I'd like to have a motion concerning the approval of the minutes of the December 17, 2012 meeting, please.
Move approval.
We have a motion of approval from Commissioner George,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Witcher. Do you have any discussion on the meeting minutes? Okay, we have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from Commissioner George, seconded by Commissioner Witcher. May I have your votes, please? Oh, what are we doing here? Am I off here? Well, hold on a minute. Let's see, maybe one of these buttons you got to push?
Yeah, I think it's on that panel. Push all of them.
Oh, there we go. You have to hit all of them, maybe. Okay. All right, so there we go. We got the votes. Well, now you know. Okay, item 2B, the formation of a Chapter 56 Vehicle for Hire Subcommittee. What we're looking here is for 2 to 3 of the commissioners to work with the staff and everybody else who's going to be working on that product, and then to make updates as the work is being done, and then when it's finally given to us, provide us a good summary of any changes or anything and your recommendations as we go through the process. Do I have anybody who wants just to volunteer for this subcommittee from the commission?
I would volunteer for.
Okay, Commissioner George? Anybody else?
I'm in.
Okay, then we have Commissioner Witcher, and that's enough, but we can have one more if we want. We'll get one too, okay. And we have Commissioner Hale. Okay. Anybody want to go fight about it and be, okay, then we're good. All right. So those are the three traffic transportation commissioners that will be on the Vehicle for Hire subcommittee. Item 2C, formation of a subcommittee to review the responses to the record service contract request for proposal. Do you have anybody who wishes to be on that?
I'm in.
Okay, we have Commissioner Littlefield, and we have Commissioner Yonkel, and Commissioner Jenkins. Okay, is that good? All right, so we have that now, and again, the same thing, you'll work with the staff and provide us updates, and then when it's all done, provide us what your recommendations are along with the staff, and that way it'll make it easier when we have to talk about it here on the Horseshoe. All right, thank you very much. Now, item 3, the report of licensed taxi and record services from the police department. And from what I understand, this is the last time you'll be coming up in your job?
This is it. Retiring.
Well, and how long have you been serving?
20 years.
20 years.
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you very much from all of us.
Oh, thank you. I'm Sergeant Mark McCaleb. I'm the Vehicle for Hire Inspector for the Police Department. During the last quarter of 2012, we issued 80 new driver permits. We renewed 59 permits, and we had 46 drivers transfer to other companies. That number is really, really high, but that's due to the creation of so many new companies, people transferring from the existing companies to the new ones. We passed 59 taxi inspections and failed 2. Both of those were not mechanical, they were just paperwork issues. We had 14 complaints on drivers. All of those complaints were driver generated. There weren't any from citizens. It was all disagreements in taxi stands, etc. We issued 6 citations to taxi drivers. Those were all for drivers that had allowed their permits to expire. But other than that, we had a really slow quarter.
Very good. Does anybody here have any comments or questions for the sergeant? And again, we want to wish you the best of luck as you move on.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, item 4, the consent docket. Do you have anybody here that wishes to speak against item 4A? No, we don't. Okay, do I have a motion concerning the consent docket, please? We have a motion from Commissioner George to approve the consent docket.
I'll second.
We have a second from Commissioner Witcher to approve the consent docket. Do you have any talk about the consent docket? Nothing? Okay, so we have a motion to approve the consent docket from Commissioner George and a second from Commissioner Witcher. Can I have your votes, please? All right, consent docket is approved. Okay, we're up now to item 5A. Brent Early, 3212 Northwest 32nd Street, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73112, to consider an application for a certificate of public convenience and necessity from Brent Early for Early Bird Transport, Inc. to operate 10 non-emergency medical transport vehicles in van service. Do you have anybody speak on this item? Okay. Staff, may I have your input, please?
You've got all our comments before you. We are recommending approval of the application as presented.
Thank you. Do we have any motions concerning item 5A?
I can move approval of the application.
Okay, we have a motion for approval from Commissioner George. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner Littlefield. Do we have any talk on item 5A? Okay, we have a motion of approval, a motion to approve item 5A from Commissioner George, seconded by Commissioner Littlefield. Can I have your votes, please? Item is approved. Wish you the best of luck. Item 5B, George Pruitt, City Limousine, Inc., 4801 Northwest 10th Street, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73127, to consider an application for a certificate of public convenience and necessity from Greg Pruitt, City Limousine, Inc., doing business as King's Limousine and Worldwide Transportation, to operate 40 vehicles in limousine service. Do you have anybody here to speak on this issue? Joey Allen?
My name is Joey Allen. I'm just here to answer any questions that you might have concerning the application.
May I have your name and your address, please, for the
Yes,
record?
Joey Allen, 3032 Southwest 125th Street, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73170.
Okay. Thank you very much. If there's any questions, then we'll pass it along to you.
Thank you.
All right? Can we have staff summary, please?
Okay. Really, the purpose of this application is to authorize expansion of the fleet that they're currently operating. They're licensed to operate up to 10 vehicles, and they've made this application so they can expand their fleet to operate up to 40 vehicles. And we are recommending approval of this matter as presented.
Do we have a motion concerning item 5B, please? I move to approve. We have a motion to approve item 5B from Commissioner Schuline. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a second from Commissioner Jenkins. Do we have any talk on this item? Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Schuline and seconded by Commissioner Jenkins to approve item 5B. Can I have your votes, please? Item is approved. Good luck, sir. Item 5C, Susan Bellis, 6209 North Style Road, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73112, to consider a request to establish a no parking 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday restriction on the south side of Goodyear Drive from North Portland Avenue to the dead end of Goodyear Drive east of North Style Road. Do you have anybody speak on this item? Do you wish to come up now, or do you just hear if you need to be here? Just here. Okay, then if we do need you, we'll have you come up. May I have staff input, please?
Okay, you've got all our comments before you. The stated purpose of the request is to improve accessibility and safety for area residents and businesses that access onto Goodyear Drive. Mrs. Bellis indicates that when vehicles are parked on both sides of the streets, it's difficult to see approaching traffic because of the parked vehicles, and this condition also hampers emergency vehicle access. The petition submitted shows that 88% of all occupied residences within the required petition canvas area, and that an overall 83% of all residents in the neighborhood supported signed the petition in support of the proposal. Her Her initial request was for the restriction to apply to the south side of Goodyear Drive from Portland to Still Road. We've kind of recrafted it so it would be the entire south side of Still Road, which would go to another about 200 feet to the east of Still Road. It would functionally add about another 150 feet of this, time of day of week and time of day parking restriction to the south side. That was mostly because from a record-keeping and maintenance standpoint, it's easier for us to sign, a full limit of the south side of a street, especially something that dead ends, as opposed to something that would be rather more limited. But if it's a preference of the neighborhood to live with a smaller restriction, that's perfectly fine as well. We just wrote it this way because we know that the commission can't take any action on something that's not on their agenda, but they can take an action on a lesser version of that same thing. So staff's recommending approval of the application as it's presented.
Okay. Do we have a motion concerning item 5C?
I move to approve item 5C.
Approve item 5C as written or as presented by the staff?
With the additional no parking area added to the dead end.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve item 5C from Commissioner Littlefield,
Second.
and we have a second from Commissioner George. Do you have any talk on this item?
I have a question.
I'd like to ask a question.
Okay. Okay, ma'am, if you could come on up, please. We need your name and your address. And if you do get to talk on your own, no more than 5 minutes, please.
Suzanne Bella, 6209 North Still Road, Oklahoma City, 73112.
Very much. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Just out of curiosity, I was talking about this with my wife, and we were trying to figure out where are all these cars coming from? Why are they parking there?
Parkway Rehabilitation Center is on
Okay.
Portland.
Right.
And it has not been a rehab center for maybe 2 years. Before that, it was a nursing home. And it's
They don't have
I believe
adequate
it's just,
parking. Okay.
in between time you leave the hospital and go home.
Yeah.
And it's just people dropping people off or waiting for them to have their rehabilitation services and such. And they come early in the morning and are there all day.
Okay, well, thank you. That's what I mean, there's probably, that probably moves the problem to somewhere else, but yeah, I can see
Well,
the
they
need
have
for...
increased their parking lot area, but still it is overflows.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right.
And
Okay,
just-
hold on one second, ma'am. 1 second. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have something too?
My question's for staff.
Okay, and then I got something for you. Are you okay with this going all the way to the dead end?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay, very good. Okay?
This road appears to be curved somewhat. How many signs will go up in this distance of no parking? I'm just wondering, well, if it's on each end or because of the curved nature of the road, does it need extra signage to make
We
sure
would
it's
probably have a couple
visible?
intermediate signs. We'd have them at the beginning, at the end, and probably maybe 2 or so in the center portion.
Just curious.
Right. And when you were talking about earlier about, or making reference to the parking situation at that rehab center, when we were out there doing site checking, the parking lot layout is very creative for that rehab center. It appears to have like 2 in drives and no exit drive. So I can see where some people might be more inclined to choose to park on the street because the parking lot itself is a challenge to try and navigate.
A question. Indeed, isn't it a fact that the owner of the rehabilitation center signed an approval
Oh,
on the
yes.
petition?
Yes, she did.
Wanted to
She
make that
agrees.
clear.
Okay, you have another one, ma'am?
When signs go up, is there a small window of additional enforcement?
What's the
that
norm on
occurs?
how you start enforcing when there's new things like that?
I mean, it would be instant. As soon as signs go up saying it's against the law, there wouldn't be really I mean, it may be a while before somebody gets up there to enforce it, but generally when they go up, it's in effect.
Right, so there's not like extra patrol when the signs go up, just to kind of quickly establish an understanding of it and to enforce it? I'm not questioning how we do things. I'm for education on how that works.
No, I mean, if they park there and the signs clearly say that they shouldn't be, then that's when we take enforcement. So,
There
I mean,
may
you could
be-
put something out early before the signs go up that, hey, we're going to eventually sign this or warn people, but once they go up.
there's certainly the opportunity for homeowners in the area to notify police that there's some parking.
Okay. Any other talk on this item? All right, thank you, ma'am.
Marvelous, thank you.
Okay, so we're talking about item 5C. We have a recommendation for approval from Commissioner Littlefield, seconded by Commissioner George. May I have your votes, please? Item is approved. Item 5D, Claudia Connor, 910 Northwest 18th Street, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma 73106. One, to change the speed limit on North Shortell Avenue between Northwest 13th Street and Northwest 18th Street from 30 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour. Two, install no vehicles in excess of 2 axis signs on Northwest 18th Street between Northwestern Avenue and North Shortell Avenue. And 3, install no vehicles in excess of 2 axles signs on North Shortell Avenue between Northwest 13th Street and Northwest 18th Street. Do we have anybody to talk on this item?
The applicant contacted us last week and has indicated that she's not able to attend this meeting due to another meeting conflict, and due to her travel plans, she will not be able to come before the commission until the April meeting. So she's asked for a continuance to your April 15th meeting.
Okay. May I have a motion concerning item 5D, please?
I'll move the action be deferred until...
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Schuline to defer to the April meeting. May I have a second, please?
Seconded.
We have a second by Commissioner Newton. Do we have any talk on this item?
I'd like to comment that this, to me personally, this seems like a pretty easy approve. Would we as a commission consider approving this without the applicant in attendance?
I, for one, would prefer to move it on. The staff recommends that we do not approve this.
Okay.
So I would be voting against it at this point. So I'd like to hear her side, I guess. Be my only...
Right, and in my conversations with the applicant, I assured her that if she requested that her item be continued to the April meeting so she can be here to represent it, that it would be held off until that time.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Newton, to move the item 5D to the April meeting. Any other talk on it? Okay, may I have your votes, please? All right, item's moved. Item 5E is a general housekeeping from several applicants. For ease of the meeting, we're going to refer to the published agenda for item 5E. It has items 1 through 11. Is there anybody to talk about this item? Not that you know of. Staff, may I have your input, please?
Well, you've got the complete history in front of you. This is really a housekeeping matter. With the passage of Ordinance 24-480, which established 1- and 2-hour parking meter zones in the downtown area, and as part of Project 180, a lot of the streets and how the parking was set up on them was reconfigured. So, and as a result of that, open taxi stands, passenger loading zones, and commercial loading zones were lost as part of that. And this is just a housekeeping matter to get some of those things reestablished. And it also includes a couple parking spaces for the physically disabled, which previously didn't exist but need to be approved through this commission and then by the City Council in order to formally adopt them and keep them in our records. So we're recommending approval of this housekeeping matter.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion concerning 5E, please?
Mr. Chairman, I recommend approval of it.
We have a motion from Commissioner Schuline to approve item 5E.
I'll second.
We have a second from Commissioner Witcher. Do we have any talk on this item? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5E from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Witcher. May I have your votes, please? Item is approved. Item 6, comments from citizens. We do have one that wished to talk. So if you come forward, please, and may I have your name, your address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
My name is William Knowles. I go by Skip. My address is 1424 Northwest 32nd Street. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present my request to you. I'd like to establish a new business in the Bricktown and downtown Oklahoma City area and provide more diverse and more exciting things that go on in the downtown area. This business relates to similar to the horse carriage tours downtown. I'd like to provide an antique automobile vehicle for touring in the downtown Oklahoma City. Now, it might be classified as classic or antique. That would be, for your interpretation. My biggest obstacle is that the code is more visual to the carriages and to the taxis. There's a bicycle taxi things
Pedicab.
downstairs or downtown, and they have limousine drop-off and pickup. So what I'm looking for is a designated area that we can establish the code and the verbiage to allow the automobile tour of the downtown area.
Okay, thank you very much. Staff, I'd like to refer this to you and council and provide some recommendations to us and make it an item to be able to talk about in the future here. Where do we put him? How does he apply? Which application does he apply for? Those kind of questions. Is that kind of clear already, or?
Well, really what he's asking for is a designated stand to be able to operate from, much like a taxi stand, but for limousines. That's not provided for in the code. The rationale is that limousines operate more like a private business. They are not just sitting on the street waiting for a passenger to walk up. They usually have an appointment to pick someone up. So that's why we haven't provided that in the past. He's looking to operate more like a taxi or a pedicab. So it would really be a policy decision for this commission as to whether we want to allow that in the future.
So would he apply as a vehicle for hire, like a normal limo taxi?
Right.
And well, he wouldn't fall under the taxi one because that's 24/7 radio cab thing.
Yeah, he just wants to operate downtown, so he would be classified as a limousine under the current ordinances.
As a limousine, so when he applies, he'd have to say for 30 minutes it's $10.
Right.
Something like, because that's what the limos usually do, is per time usage.
Right.
Or by mileage or something. So he would apply as a limo.
Right.
And he would have to indicate how fares are done and how things happen in his application.
Right.
And then it's the second part of the issue that's the bigger problem, is how does he pick up and drop off in the downtown area?
Right. There's nothing really to prevent him from operating right now. He's just looking for a stand to operate from. There's nothing to prevent him from parking at a meter or parking in a private parking lot. Whereas the taxis, we provide them with stands, but they are prevented from, there's an ordinance against them parking at the meters.
Right. So, sir, if you could come back up and let me ask, just so we get it clear of what you're asking, are you asking for us to approve a stand, per se, like we do for the horses?
Yes, sir.
And to consider you a carriage, per se, where you would be there, people would come up, give you some money, you do a set kind of tour, or have different distances you could go and time limits with them?
Yes, sir.
And that would all be in your application on, if you could go for half an hour, it's $10 an hour, it's $15, whatever.
Yes, sir, certain route.
But, so, you understand, you can apply for that now, to operate now, but the problem is you don't have a place to pick up and drop off.
And I have already turned in an application. It's just that that's not as important as, finding a place for it.
Okay, so maybe next meeting we'll have the application come up, is that right, Mr. Chai? I mean, if he submitted an application, so it's in the process of going through now?
Well, actually, just from my understanding, the description of the business practice that's being proposed is to almost operate like a carriage. It'll be operating like a carriage, except it'll be using a motor vehicle. Like I said, like you understand, we've got designated open stands for cabs. There are actually designated stands for carriages. Limousines don't have stands. I mean, that's just not something the city's ever provided. So it would be a function of writing, I guess, enacting something in the code that would allow for a motor vehicle operating like a carriage to create a stand, whether it's, within an existing stand that's used for other purposes. That could be something that would have to be considered. And then I guess a revision to our, it sounds almost like a revision to like the carriages section.
Right. So let me ask, when are you wanting to start? I mean, is it something that can wait 6 months while we go through the bureaucratic process, or is it something that we need to try to fix pretty quickly for you?
I'm ready to proceed.
Of course.
It's just, whenever we can.
But this is the government.
There's cost to the application itself that I've already applied for. I wouldn't want to do anything without knowing that it's something that can be done.
Of course.
So I wouldn't want to
So
purchase
that's where we
vehicles.
defer to council and to the staff on how quickly we can make an exception, because an exception like that would actually have to go to city council, correct? Because we don't approve changes to the...
It would come here first.
Well, it would come here first.
And then it would go to city.
Right, but let's just say we call it a motored carriage, and it falls under the horse carriage rules and whatever you come up with as recommendation. It would come to us, we say, yeah, we kind of like that, and then it's got to go to city council to get approved. And then it could be so that could be flowed pretty quickly with an understanding that we have another month before we meet again.
Right. Since we're already revising Chapter 56, it would be easiest to incorporate that all at the same time.
But the 56 final is a couple months out.
At least.
Right, and so I think what we want or would like to help him is to ask you guys to figure out where you want to put it, have him make sure his paperwork is right, and if there's a change that you want to recommend to the current 56, whether it's add paragraph E or something and put it in, that would be all coming next meeting when we look at his application that he's already submitted. Is that something that could work?
Well, there's really not an issue with the way he operates. It's just really the stand is the main issue.
But he's saying that he can't operate until we would give him a place to pick up and drop off at. Because we don't want pick-up and drop-offs at corners in general. So that's kind of where I'm kind of going is it a problem that we need to have fixed, or can we just approve him and off he goes and just tell him to drop off on a corner?
Well, that's where I would need the commission to make a policy decision whether they want to allow it, because once we open the door to him having a stand, all of the limousines, that's going to give them the right
But if
to...
we don't call him a limo because he's not leaving the Bricktown area and he has some established routes that he goes, just like the horse carriages probably have established routes that they're limited to, and it's a drop-off at the same spot. Like Mr. Chai is saying, it's not really a limo.
Yeah, that would require us to create a whole new class of
Exactly, and that's what I'm
vehicles for
saying is,
hire.
he's ready to go, we don't want to hold it up if we don't have to. Is that something you guys could work on before the next meeting, and as his application comes up, come with a recommendation? Now, what I'm going to do is come around the horseshoe, so everybody can throw in a little bit, right? And that's okay, right? We can go ahead and talk about this a bit?
Yeah, you can talk about it, we just can't decide anything today.
Okay, very good. So let's start over here. Do you have some, we'll just go around the number.
What hours of operation would you envision this operating?
The typical downtown hours are evenings and then weekends. 3 till 10 in the evenings, Monday through Friday, and Saturdays noon till 10, and Sundays noon till 6.
If the city were to amend the ordinance and provide a stand location, where would you envision that being?
I've got my favorites. I'm looking at a parcel, the street, Oklahoma, and Sheridan, actually on Sheridan on the south side of the street. That's across from Bricktown Brewery.
Yeah, I work in that building.
Okay. There's not a lot of activity for businesses on that other side, So that would probably be my choice of not interfering with a lot. There's just parking there.
So is there an opportunity, is there a chance that you could investigate an opportunity to somehow make an arrangement with a local business to essentially for them to give you a place to, I'm just tossing that out, to create a stand? And then, what happens if I don't see any taxis handy and a carriage can't take me out to the airport, and I say, hey, this is a cool-looking car, will you take me to the airport? What do you do? Is that just, what's to prevent you from kind of operating as a taxi service?
Now that I'm not sure what the council or what the code is, but I'm like some of the carriages. They don't want to change their route any because they have customers that they need to be loyal to down in the Bricktown area, downtown Oklahoma City. So if I leave the area, I'm disregarding the purpose that I'm there for. I could see where it could be done. The carriages can't do it, but an antique vehicle can go that far. But I'm leaving. I would be loyal to my customers that are there for the tour.
Okay, and I guess the point I'm getting to is that if we create an ordinance that allows what you're talking about, a motor vehicle carriage type of stand thing, it's going to prohibit you from doing other types of business, and just kind of be careful what you ask for, just in case that would be a problem.
Yes, and I would make my application that direction also.
Sure, yeah.
I'm not real savvy on the whole subject of taxis and limousines. I'm still learning a lot about that. But would the success of a business that you're suggesting depend on a public ordained domain to be successful, or would it be possible to lease a space from an existing business or use a private spot to operate from?
Yes, I've thought about that. The bad thing is now this is selfish, I don't want to invest money in something and then go to a business and use the parking lot, for example. The corner of the parking lot might be a perfect location, but 3 months from now, 6 months sometime, having a problem with the owner and changing the rules, and now I've invested a lot in equipment and vehicles, and now I don't have a place to go without starting all over from scratch. That I don't want to do. So that's kind of pushed me away from going to someone with a parking lot. And that was a good idea. I think the city suggested that from the very beginning, and I said, no, I just don't like that idea. Things change.
Or leasing something that's distinctly yours, not subletting a spot or working with an existing business.
Again, the only ones I've ever worked with want a less than 30-day notice, and that's not a very workable. And I think most of the business in downtown Bricktown area, and I like to emphasize the Bricktown area, they're not very workable on a lease.
Okay, sure.
So your intent is to have this operate within a boundary then? You're going to have a certain definitive boundary that you're not going to move outside of, say, Bricktown downtown. It's not going to move outside of that. You're going to be confined there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Question to staff. We already have carriage stands established for this. Maybe not necessarily a question for staff, but recommendation for staff is establish a separate carriage stand for motorized carriage, and have the same stands we currently use for carriages, and have a separate one or two out there for motorized for this specific purpose. And that way we can have both, but they're still separate. And as long as it's confined, as he indicates, then he would not be outside of his boundaries of his carriage service. He would still be operating within those rules.
And then the limo people won't be able to come and say,
And the limo people won't be able to come.
he's got a stand,
Exactly.
we want a stand, because it's a different function.
It's a different
Limos
function.
can go anywhere, they can go to Kansas if you want.
It would be labeled as such, motorized carriage stand, and it could be for rickshaws, motorcycles, whatever, that you're motorized, not an animal-driven type of a cart. Keep them separate so that we don't have accidents.
Ma'am, Do you have any comments or questions?
Prior to this being ready to get into the marketplace, I'd like to see pictures of the vehicles. Do you already own them, or, okay?
I provided a sample with my application, and I don't know where the application is right now, but I've got ideas of what I'm looking for, something in the neighborhood of a 1945 to 1950, well, 1935 to 1950-ish.
Okay. So it's clearly more of a classic. It's not just a, I mean, I'm not saying anything about a 69 Mustang, but it's not just a 69, I mean, so I because it is so new, and I think the concept is actually pretty clever.
Thank you.
But I just want it to be real overtly believable to the foot traffic that you do need to jump in. And then what sort of, because old cars don't have seatbelts. I mean, I know that's a whole other deal. Where does that start getting murky for him? And I mean, there's not a seatbelt on a horse-drawn carriage, I'm assuming. But I mean, do you see where I'm going? Just so he's real clear for success. I don't know who I'm asking that to. I just feel like it's sort of.
There's different inspection requirements for the carriages and the motorized vehicles. So he would need to pass the inspection for all the other motor vehicles would have to go through.
Well, so you're saying he'd have to pass the taxi inspection?
Well, they're all the same. For the motorized vehicles, they're all the same.
Taxi, limo, the inspections that you do are basically all the same?
But that's one of the major problems is the antiques, and I used it as an example. Antiques don't have air conditioning, and that was pretty easy to, set down on paper. So there's no way that I know of that we can satisfy that code requirement for the taxis that are on the system already. But I would like to say that anything that was manufactured by the vehicle is in operating order.
Now, would these be open? I mean, will they be convertibles or roofed antique vehicles? It doesn't matter?
It probably doesn't matter, but convertibles would be great for the client, but I don't foresee that many convertibles back then. So mine are tending to be just the classic automobile.
But that's something that has to be talked about is these vehicles would probably need, like he's saying, as long as it meets the original manufacturing. Well, yeah, that's a good point that you'd have to think about. Okay?
Yeah, that would be another policy decision we'd have to make if we want to amend the inspection requirements.
Okay. And let's go on down here, sir.
If we move in this direction to allow this type of operation, it seems that we might set up a new classification, and that would be of a tour vehicle, to where whenever you make your application for a tour vehicle, that you have a set route, which defines exactly what your route will be, what your row will be as far as what services. And that way, with that new classification, that we could have the allowance for what's factory installed as opposed to a vehicle for hire taxi. So it seems like if we're going to move in this direction, this is probably what we need to be looking at, just a new classification for a specific market.
Very good. Julian, any questions, comments?
Well, I support you and your concept. I think it sounds really novel and like a lot of fun. I know a lot of people who'd enjoy that, and I hope that we can work with staff to come up with something to accommodate them.
Yes, ma'am.
I think it's a good idea, too, but I have some concerns. As Commissioner Newton brought out, to have a designated parking space. But what if another company decides, hey, this is a good idea? So how do you make up all these spaces for different people? Because you wouldn't want another company coming into your space. It would be the same as leasing. You would not have anything on a permanent basis. So that's a concern.
Right, it would be the same as the horse carriage. Isn't there like 2 or 3 different companies that work there? So they all share the same stand. So like right now, if he had one vehicle, then he'd need a space that's only that big. But if he had a couple vehicles or some other companies came in, they would probably want to expand. That's right.
Right. I think there's a little deeper than that, but we can get to it when we go a little
Needless to
further.
say, I would love to have a monopoly on it, but I realize that if it's a good idea, people will notice. So,
Okay, sir?
Yes, my people have kind of talked it through, but somewhat, but it, the first blush, just now seeing it, I like the idea, but I think it'd be great for Bricktown for sure. But my gut feeling is that it will take a long time to get a stand set up, just because it is city, moving slowly, getting a stand. I just think it'll take months and months. So my suggestion would be to try it and lease a space, continue the process to see if it'll work for you. I mean, it'll work if you're leasing a space, and it'll work better if you have a space. So I think if you just tried it and got into it, see how the city hooked onto it, and if it then continue the process to get a stand. I think if you're going to wait for a stand, you'll be waiting months and months. That's just my gut, but I could be wrong.
So, best case, as I see it, is you work with the staff works with council and the local law enforcement, and they all agree on something in 3 weeks, and they put it as an item for us, and they answered all of our questions, and we're all happy, and we agree at the next meeting. Then it goes over to city council. They all agree. So that's at least about a month and a half to 2 months from today, if everything is perfect. And of course, this is a normal operation here. So Mr. George brings up a very good point that that's your choice if you wish to proceed, let this process work. But I think even in the application process, never mind just a stand, there's a lot of questions that has to be answered, like we talked about. So that's kind of where it's at. We'll just let you work with the staff, and we'll see what you all come up with. Now you've heard our thoughts. Okay, is that good, sir?
yes, sir.
All right. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on that? Anything from you on that? Okay. Okay. So now item 7, reports from the Traffic and Transportation Commission. Mr. Richard.
Well, a couple of comments. So we had some email and some information on the Pebblestone Parkway, and had got some feedback that our stop signs, probably somewhat predictably have not, they've changed the traffic a little bit, but they haven't necessarily slowed it down and such. I guess the first comment is that's what we're here for, is that to try to provide some options that you wouldn't find by just strictly following the ordinance and regulations and stuff like that. So I'm glad that we're here doing what we're doing, even though I'm getting a reputation for being the guy who doesn't like stop signs. But as we go throughout this year, I'd like for us to be focused on paying attention to the data, and because the engineering data, ultimately, it doesn't lie. It's useful, and not just approving something because a bunch of the neighbors signed the petition, but to see if we can really do some good when we're adding stop signs or adding no parking or what have you. The other comment that's also came to mind because of that same situation is, once in a while, the questions that we're asked to address are responding to poor design, poor neighborhood design. And I don't know what action we can take to move upstream to Planning Commission and ask them to be thinking about traffic and how people are coming around corners and children playing in streets and all that kind of stuff. But it seems like that's where a lot of these problems could be solved, is in a better design review at Planning Commission.
Okay.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything at all until now. I totally agree with what Commissioner Witcher is saying. And I have discovered in Ward 2 that working closely with my planning commissioner has been effective in opening the eyes when there are applications for commercial developments, particularly, not so much residential developments in Ward 2, but it has spawned some real discussion and planning before these things get approved and how they're going to impact on traffic. And what I would encourage is that all of you get to know your planning commissioner and offer to be available to them when things come before them and take a look at it together and see if there would be traffic ramifications. Beyond that, there is a policy in place where I believe that staff makes recommendation to planning commissioners, I hope I'm getting this right, whether or not a traffic study needs to be conducted with a particular application. So it is moving forward, and the two are beginning to come more together. I've always discovered that looking at being in the process of planning together can help avoid great big huge long expressway boulevards flying through brand new neighborhoods where then they come to us and really the only thing that we can do is ask a police officer to sit there or put up a stop sign that has minimal impact. Nothing else from Ward 2. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to add a little bit to that as well. We already have, if we're working with our planning commissioner to help with new things, what about the old, already existing neighborhoods? How do we address those more effectively? We don't really have a lot of tools at our disposal. One thing we can't do is put in things like speed bumps to slow people down. But what can we do? What could we add? What could we do to make these better? Could we propose to the HOA that they save their money and put some textured pavement in right there? Because I guarantee you hit that textured pavement going too fast, you're going to want to slow down. So there's other mechanisms we could use to our advantage to calm traffic down. We just need to find what those are, find out what's acceptable, and propose these to these HOAs in lieu of stop signs, because in this case it didn't work as well as we had hoped it would, and something else may do better, and it may end up being cheaper, more effective in the long run. So that would be my preference. The less we have to deal with the stop signs, the better it will probably end up being.
Okay, thank you very much. Ma'am, do you have any? Okay. Sir?
No comment.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, yesterday I had lunch with Kim Cooperhart from the City Planning Department introduced me to the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Jaime DePaulo, who's a new employee of theirs. And we took a tour of Southwest 29th, and I know that they're building support and energy in the business community along Southwest 29th to perhaps put together a business improvement district. I was really excited, came away really enthused, and I know they're going to want to work with us. I think staff's going to enjoy working with them. There's some great new Mexican restaurants I was introduced to that you'll enjoy working with, but I look forward to the recommendations they're going to read back to us. And again, like you guys have suggested, we do need to work with the planning department. I know the public works is going to be involved too, but it's a great little area. I think we're going to be enjoying seeing stuff come out of there. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Ma'am?
Okay. Mine relates to the planning department as well, our commission. Grand Boulevard, Northeast Grand Boulevard, I've been asked by some residents over there. There's a request or a letter from the city for a meeting to change from residential to commercial, and that's from about Northeast 58th or 59th up to 56th. But only part of the neighborhood has been notified, and that's the neighborhood that's probably from Grand Boulevard to Rhode Island, or maybe to Terry. But I didn't have any answer. I just referred them to the Planning Commission. But it would affect traffic in that area because traffic has really increased due to Remington, the Science Museum, the whole Adventure District.
Very good. Thank you, ma'am. Sir?
I really don't have anything. I was glad to see there was no stop signs on today's agenda, though. But, you know, I know the statistics and stuff are important for sure, Jim, but I think a homeowners association trumps it every time. So, my two.
Good. Yeah. Yes, sir. Do you have anything for us?
While we're on the topic of Pebblestone Parkway, we have had some officers up there, the motor officers. I talked a little bit about Commissioner George with it. We've had 25 man-hours that we've put in up there. We wrote 61 hazardous citations, which means speeding tickets. And technically speeding tickets, we wrote 7 non-hazardous citations, which could be anything from tags to insurance. So almost 70 tickets. Personally, I still think it's a good stop sign. I did go up there and look at it, and one reason I thought you all did put the stop sign in was not just to slow people down, but to allow people to pull out of that addition. And the curve on that road was severe, and when people were running 50, if we've taken it from 50 to 42 or 48 to 42, it's significant. So I think it was a good stop sign for allowing people to pull out, because if you did pull out there and people are running that speed, it's definitely helped. So we'll continue to work it like we have worked it, but I like to see stop signs used for ease of pulling out and safety, obviously, other than speed control, because they'll just speed up to the stop sign and then speed after the stop sign. So for what it's worth, I think it was. So we'll continue to monitor it. So thank you all.
Ma'am, do you have anything? Sir, any closing? Okay. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Just real quick, is there any type of mechanism we can use to get together with our counterparts in the Planning Commission? I've never been able to get with our folks. I've made myself available, but truthfully, nobody's ever gotten back with me and said, hey, Jay, can you help with this? I'd like to know, is there some sort of get-together we could have so that we could all meet and know who each other are and that we're available?
Well, the Planning Commission meets twice a month.
Okay.
So if you had time and opportunity, they meet the second and fourth Thursdays of the month at 1:30. So the commission will be here, so if that's one possible opportunity to reach them, but otherwise you can probably contact them directly.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, it might be something that we could facilitate through the staff, the council staff, to kind of connect council members and members of the various commissions that just let each other know that each other's around.
Right. Okay, anything else we have? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn from Commissioner Newton. Any second? We have a second from Commissioner Jenkins. Anybody wants to stay? All right, let's vote, and we're out of here. Everybody vote, please. Thank you very much.